Okay, now that we are on part 2 here, welcome. We're going to go over your week 3 assignment. So this week we are going to do part 1 and next week is part 2. So here are the instructions that you will find once you go to your module 3. And you read down here, you scroll down here, I should say. You have your checklist, and if you open that checklist, you'll see specifics of what you're supposed to use for the first article only. So we'll go over this. So the first article only, we will be using only Adobe CC fonts, and you can find that here. So copy and paste that in your web browser, and you can find some Adobe fonts. You can also use your Creative Cloud, which I'll show you in a second. InDesign only, we don't want anything like Illustrator or Photoshop. This is for InDesign only. The size is going to be 8.5 by 11, so portrait format. It's going to be 4 pages. Now we're only going to do the first 2 pages today, and then 2 pages will be the part 2. Okay, so just FYI. So 2 pages today, 2 pages next week, but the whole letter, the newsletter will be 4 pages total. Set up master pages. That actually should say parent page. They changed the wording of master to parent page. It's the same thing, only they just changed the terminology. So set up parent page. You're going to do page numbers, margins, and grid columns, and I'll show you how to do that. You're going to define a paragraph style, a minimum. So you can, obviously the minimum has to be body copy. Do not use Minion Pro, anything else but Minion Pro. Think about readability of your typeface that you're using in body copy. You don't want to use, a script font or a decorative font. You want to use something that's legible and readable. And the size should be about 10 point in size and 14 point leading. That's a good ratio, the space and the size of the text. You'll have a title, a paragraph heading, and a bullet list. You're going to define the baseline grid, and you're going to place article text. Choose only one article for this week. So it depends on which one you want to choose, 1 or 2. One is communicating throughout the design process, and the other one is an unhappy client. Once you choose that, we're going to lay this out. So place images. All images should not be used this week. So we want to divide this up. Minimum 2, maximum 3 can be used this week. Okay. Apply text wrap to images if necessary. Now, this looks pretty maybe overwhelming to you, and that's okay. But once we get into it, I hope that I can make it a little bit more simple by showing you how I would attempt this myself through this demonstration. So what I would suggest is listening to this demonstration first, and then go back and rewind it. And then you can then stop it, fast forward, rewind, based on the steps that you're going to be doing with me with this recording. That's just the easiest way, I think, just listening to it first and then going back, because that way, you're getting the full presentation, and then you can use it as a resource going forward. All right, so that's the checklist. That's the things we have to do. You might want to download that. That's a PDF, and just put that on your desktop. I have mine on the side here. That way you can easily cross-check it, make sure you have all of the, the necessary checklist items. Okay, and I'm showing it here, basically. The first article only using Adobe fonts, InDesign only, all of the stuff that you see in your specs is what I have here on this slide. All right, so once you look at the specs, now we want to download the assets for the newsletter assignment. So this is the part where we're kind of emulating how the client would give you these files. And this is typically a real world situation. Working for an ad agency and a publication company, this is basically the typical way clients reach out to you and say, this is the files that we want you to have, here are the images we want you to use. Now, sometimes they'll say, you can look for other images and use other images too, but in this particular case, they want you to use a certain amount and a certain type. So they're providing it to you through a folder that they're sending to you, as well as copy. And this is a typical way clients do this. So we're kind of getting all of this in a zipped folder here. And what you're going to do is just download the assets, and I'll show you where that's at. So in your week 3, right here, it says newsletter assets. You're going to click on that, and then you're going to click on download. Now, if you're on a Mac like me, it's going to put it in the download. You'll see it kind of downloading. And then when it's done, you're going to have to unzip it, which just click on it really. And it's unzipping it because here's the zipped folder. And what zip means is it's just compressing it into one file. So that's easy to send. You know, you're not sending all of these images as separate attachments. You're zipping a whole 2 folders of stuff. And it's also compressed. So the file, you know, becomes smaller when you're compressing it and zipping it. So once open, you'll see it says newsletter assets, looks like a blue folder. You have article 1 and article 2 as a Word file. And then you have your images. You have client meeting 1, communicating 1, creative process, design process, and unhappy client. So we're only going to use about 2 or 3 in this article, and then obviously whatever's left over for the second one. So pick the article you want to do first. It doesn't have to be in this order for this week, and the pictures that you obviously that goes with it. The best way to do this is open up your articles, go over the articles, go read them. This is a common mistake with certain graphic designers that don't read the content. You know, I've been guilty of that too. And then what happens is you miss a lot of information, and you know, you don't want to miss out. Let me make sure I'm sharing my screen here. You don't want to miss out on, you know, important information that will help you design your pages. So read through this. This is the copy. Let's see, first copy. That's number 1 article. And then number 2 article looks like this. So this is how a client would give this to you typically. This is really kind of, and what's funny about this is notice how, oh, now that we're reading through this, we notice that there's spelling errors, right? And sometimes clients do that. You know, clients aren't perfect. But we want to make sure that we cover our backs, and we do our own checking. So we're going to spell check each one of these articles before we copy and paste, correct? Okay, so let's say we're going to go with number 1 article. You can see here all the underlined words are not spelled correctly. So what we're going to do in Word, we're going to go ahead and do a spell check. And how you do a spell check in Word is you go up to, let me see here, tools, spelling and grammar. And we're going to, oh, it's already kind of, it's on. So it's telling us which ones are the spelling errors, and that's why it's showing in red. So if we click on those words in red, we can go ahead and correct those. So look at all these. Your clients, it's telling us apostrophe, language. Look at all these spelling errors. So we want to make sure we go through this first, and I'll know if you're listening to this lecture or not, because if you didn't and you forgot to do the spell check, I'll know, because you'll have all these spelling errors in your file. I'm going to go ahead and save it. There's like a little space here too. Let's delete that. Okay, so once that's you know, once you correct the spelling errors, go ahead and read through it. You can see there's a subhead, and then there's intro copy, and then there's other subheads and copy with this. So read through it, kind of decide based on the, remember the, let's see, the assets here. Let's open this up again. What we want to, oh, not the assets, sorry. What we want to, the checklist, what we want the, we want to make sure we have a title, a paragraph, a bullet list. Okay, so kind of think about that as you're reading through this. All right, so now let's go back here. We got the assets downloaded. We have to kind of think of a good typeface that's readable for the body copy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on my Adobe Creative Cloud here. And you can find fonts on here. If you click on this little F, this is basically that link that they just showed you in the list, the checklist, the Adobe fonts. So what you're going to do is you're going to find a font that you think is very easy to read for the body copy. You might even pick a headline. The headline can be different than the body copy. So just an FYI. But in here, you could kind of click on it and you can see the example here. So I probably wouldn't use that for body copy because it'd be really hard to read. But maybe, let's see, Century Gothic. Bodoni would be a really good one because it has a nice type family with it too. You can keep it consistent. So Bodoni would be a good one for body copy, it'd be readable. And then you can use maybe Centric Gothic for the headline, or something else that would make it, would complement it. Even Rockwell might complement it because it has a nice type family here where you can go bold, if you want to go bold with the headlines. So that's where you would find the Adobe fonts in the Creative Cloud. You can also type in that Adobe link that's in your checklist to find those two to download it if you don't have them. Okay, so download the checklist. You only need to place one article in InDesign. Be sure to watch the assignment demo for specific requirements. If you do not follow directions, you will have double work next week and you'll lose half credit. So just FYI. And then I'll show you how to package the InDesign file and zip the folder. And you're going to submit the zip folder for this particular part 1. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and leave this open. I'm going to do article 1 first, but again, it's up to you on what you want to get started with. Now I'm going to go into InDesign. I'm going to open the InDesign and remember the specs that were given in the checklist, right? So we want to go new document and we want to make sure this is 8.5 wide by 11. That's portrait in inches. Now we want to make sure this is 4 pages. Now we're only going to be 2 pages for this particular part, but we want 4 pages total because we'll get back to that next week. Facing pages should not be checked because we're not going to do a side-by-side. It's a newsletter. So actually, you know what? We are going to do a side-by-side. Let me think about this. It's going to be 4 pages. Yes, we actually are going to do a side-by-side. I was thinking it was only going to be 2 pages, but 4 pages we want to do side by side. So go ahead and click on facing pages. And what that's going to do, and I'll show you what that looks like without it being checked so you can understand what that means. But that's going to create kind of like a cover page and an inside spread type of a look. Okay. If you didn't check this, it's just going to be singular pages in a row. All right, columns. I'm going to leave this. I'm going to leave this for now because I can always change this. So leave this at 1 and then leave this as that. And then your margins, I would leave that at 0.52. And then your bleeds as well, just kind of leave everything set as is. We're going to hit create. Okay, so it should look like this. And when you open this up, you should see your page panel. Now your page panel will show you each of your pages. Now let me zoom out so you can see it, how it's shown. If you zoom out way out, you'll see it kind of match. This is your parent page here, and I'll explain what that is. But these are kind of an easy way to navigate to each page. So if I were to zoom in here, I could go say to the cover page first. I know you can't see this. And then this is the inside, and then this is the back. So you could just double click on this. Now they each have an A on it because they're assigned to the A parent page. And that's pretty much your master page is what they used to call it. And that just, and I'll explain that in a second here, but that just allows you to repeat certain elements on each page very easily, like say a page number or elements that you know you want it to be consistent on every page without doing double, triple the work. Okay, we're just going to kind of ignore that for now. We're going to go back to that. All right, so now that we have this all ready to go, let me explain a little bit in detail. We kind of went over the selection tools in here. So the selection tool is what you use to kind of move things around. So let's say you have a shape you want to start out with for the masthead. And I'm just drawing out a square here. Let me bring up a color. So go up to window. This is where you'll find all the panels that may not be on your artboard right now. So let's go to, let's see, where's our colors? Color. And then let's go to swatches. This will bring up your swatch panel. And you can always, like, say if you don't find a color in here, you can always double click on your picker. So this is like the fill picker. And you can kind of move this around and choose a color that you might want instead. So you're not like locked into those swatches, okay? And the other thing about swatches, ooh, let me see here, go back up to color. You can, let's see, window, let's go back to color. You can also have, instead of swatches, the color picker here, where you can kind of slide and do different things to the color as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this, you know, color swatch panel is just a nice panel to have open if you want to save these colors. You know, say if you really like this color, that you're using this like maroon color, you can drag and drop it into your swatches. See that? And it's going to save it in there. So you can always, you know, keep that color consistent. Okay, so anyway, that's the color panel. Your selection tool is to move things around like text or boxes. If you ever want to change the size of your boxes, you want to take your selection tool and just kind of move around. These are called little bounded. This is a bounding box. Okay, if you want to delete it, just hit delete on your keyboard. All right, type tools, how you get type, you guys learned that. There's different like line tool in here. You could do a line tool to do certain like lines where, say, you want to add that as a graphic element. And again, you can change the color of this anytime you want. If you wanted to change the color, you just want to make sure that you are changing the stroke, because that's part of the stroke is showing where there's like a little square in the middle there. And then the fill would be this particular fuller square. Now with a line, since it's just a stroke, it would be just the stroke part. You can go up to window and choose stroke. And this could be a way that you can edit this stroke, this actual line. So you can make it thicker, your weight. You could add arrows to this, or you can make it maybe dots instead. Can't really see it. There we go. You can change the color to it. You can even, let's see here. You can give it like an arrow on the one end, depending on which side you want to do. So there's really some neat things you could do with this, you know, stroke panel. Just remember that's there. We'll kind of reference that in a second. Pen tool is a neat tool because you have a little bit more control than the line tool. And the pen tool is similar in Illustrator. If you click on these little vector dots is what they're called, you can pull out any shape that you want. So let's say if you wanted to do a shape like that and use your direct selection tool, which is your white arrow, you could go in and play around with the handlebars to make a specific custom shape for your newsletter, which is kind of neat. And the direct selection tool is where you can actually click on your anchor points one at a time to edit those. Okay, that's it. The pencil's a little harder to do and to like kind of get used to. So if you're not used to that, you might want to kind of practice it before you use this so you don't get frustrated. But it's exactly what it is in Illustrator, just helps you do custom shapes. Then you have your shapes panel here. So if you wanted to do like ellipse tool, you could do ovals. If you want to like a symmetrical circle, you hold the shift key down first, just like with the square as well, and you get a symmetrical circle. just like the square tool as well. If you don't hold the shift key down, it's going to give you a rectangle, but if you hold the shift key down, it's going to give you a symmetrical square. You also have the polygon tool, and I believe there's a star tool too. And I believe that is, if you don't see any of the tools there, let's see, just like an Illustrator. Oh, you know what? It's not on here. Illustrator's a little different. Yeah, I don't think they're going to give that to you here. It's a little different than Illustrator. If you want to do a star, you just do the polygon and click one time on your artboard. This is just like an easy way to do it. And then you would just check more of the sides. Whoops, more of the sides would be added. And then what you would do is you would have an inset. So you would, you know, create this nice little star, or like a highlighted part of your, say, newsletter. So if you wanted to make it more of a star looking, you'd make the inset, the star inset, a little bit higher in percentage. There we go. And you can make it, if you hold the shift key down, you can, with your selection tool, make it bigger and smaller. You can give it different colors. That's the stroke, that's the fill. If you don't want a stroke on there, you can hit none for the stroke. And one other thing, what's nice, let's go up to window here and go to color. I'm going to show you gradients. Gradients are kind of cool. So let's say I want to put a gradient on this. So I'll go back to swatches and I'll put the color I want. And I'll drag it to my gradient, which is under color, by the way. I showed you that. And you can see how it created this nice gradient. And I have to have my tools, my shape selected in order to do that. So I just dragged and dropped that in there. Now this is on a linear type. So if I did radial, let's go ahead and see that. You'll see it how it's more of a radial gradient. And these are called little stops. So you can actually change the gradient and how it manipulates, like say you want a more highlight or less highlight. You can play around with this neutral stop. You can even pull these out. You can add different colors in here too. Like say if you wanted to add red, how you delete them is just pull them off. Let's say you wanted to add yellow in there. That's kind of cool. Say you don't want the white anymore. Go ahead, drag the white off. Oh wait, you can't drag the white off. You have to select the white, select the color that you want the white to be. So let me get rid of this stop here. Select the white, and then you drag and drop that right on top of that stop to change that color. Same with the other one if you wanted to do that. So that's kind of a neat little thing to play around with if you don't know how to play with gradients yet. That's the gradient panel. All right, what else? And the eyedropper tool, you have the zoom and zoom out. Yep, all that's the basic stuff. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste that article. After we read it all, we're going to go ahead and do Command A, which is basically select all. So if you go up to here, you could go. There's the select all up here. It's different in everything. Let's see. If you are on a Mac, you could just do edit select all, which is Command A. And then we're going to do Command C, which is copy. Okay. And then I'm going to go back to Illustrator. I'm going to take the type tool and I'm just going to click and drag over just one text box. So I just clicked on the type tool, clicked and dragged over. It doesn't matter what size it is right now, just making this big text box so we can paste this in. Command V will paste all the copy in. Okay. Once you get the copy in, do the selection tool. You can kind of move this around, whatever you want to do. Now, notice how there's a red box down there right now at the very lower right-hand corner. That's just telling me, hey, there's more copy, but you just can't see it here because this box isn't big enough. So we really want to pay attention to that. And that's an alert to a designer that, you know, you want to make sure you have all the copy in there. Sometimes when you're not paying attention, you might be not having all the copy included, which could make, clients really upset if it's not included. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull this copy to the left. So I have it here on my artboard, and I'm going to set up a grid. And remember how we talked about that before with your ad? It's the same concept. You can go up to view and you can show, say, your baseline grid, if that helps. Sometimes it's kind of in the way for some people. So if it helps seeing the baseline grid, you have to zoom in on it. Sometimes you have to see it. That might be helpful to see. You don't necessarily have to have that. And then you can also use the document grid. Completely up to you. I kind of find it distracting, so I'm gonna hide that. I'm going to go to Snap Document Grid. And what that does is allows me to pull out my guides and it'll snap it to that grid. Now, if it's kind of bothersome and I want to change the size of that grid, you might want to not do that. Actually, I'm going to not do that. But what I would recommend is going up to view grids and guides and choosing snap to guides here, because that's just nice. Allows you to snap, say, text to a guide once you have your guides out. It kind of helps you align certain things. Let me get rid of all these. Okay. So knowing that this is a letterhead or a newsletter and it's the front cover, we want to make sure that we have some type of, it's called a masthead, a lead in. And this is what I'm going to kind of leave up to you guys to be creative with. And we are going to look at some examples. Actually, before we get started with that, let's go ahead and look at some examples here. If you go to your week 3 letterhead examples, there's some really good information in here of not only examples, but of things that are helpful to do, okay, before you get started. It tells you what a purpose of a newsletter is. So it's basically a publication to provide information. It often communicates news and updates pertaining to a business, product, and services. Marketing research directly applies to a targeted audience or group that a company will wish to inform. Newsletters done effectively can also create a company's credibility and build an organization's identity or brand personality. So what makes a good design? A good newsletter takes planning and thinking. Writing down what the client wants or suggests can help get ideas flowing. Utilizing the elements and principles of design make it easier to plan if the client or company has a formal or informal product or event to showcase. Choosing the kind of balance early in the process begins the feel of the page. So this just, I'm gonna not read over this part, but go ahead and read over these. Kind of tells you what to pay attention to as far as like a focal point, all the symmetrical and asymmetrical. Symmetrical means balance, asymmetrical is non-balanced. And it's up to you on what you want yours to do, depending on what you think is appropriate for this particular newspaper or newsletter, sorry. So as we gather information and ask ourselves questions when finding a solution to the given problem, what decisions do I make first when designing a page? Format, well, we already have that. Grids, so the grid, the margin, outer boundaries. We have gutters and alleys, space between columns equals organized copy, headline, title, subtitle. So here's some examples of 1 to 2 page newsletters. And kind of on the left-hand side here is copy to support what type of layout this is, direction, contrast, unity. And then it tells you what not to do. So do not mix 1, 2, and 3 columns within a layout. 2 and 3 can work together. Don't utilize one wide column. It's difficult to read, if you have line lengths are too long. And then they have tips in here. So do place text over photo to unify and use space effectively. Do crop pictures at edges of page and bleed. Do use small titles or subheads to break up copy. So yeah, it gives a nice overview and just different layout grids to be inspired by, that you can kind of pick what you think would work best for your newsletter. And notice how the color And, you know, the balance of each element plays a part in each of these. So you can see how it unifies together throughout. So it has good proportion. We don't want it to be too heavy on the text side. We want it to balance out with, you know, visuals that are interesting, color that's interesting, eye flow. You know, we're organizing this information. Okay, so this is just something to look back on as examples as we go forward here. Okay, so knowing that, we have to kind of think of a headline for our newsletter. So before I even do that, I'm going to do, you're going to make sure you have your rulers up. So view, show rulers, mine are already showing. And then we're going to break this up into a grid structure. So I'm going to go down to like 3 inches where my headline will be above here. So that's the starting margin of my grid structure, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide, okay, how many columns do I want for my body copy? And I can go ahead up here and go to layout, margins, and columns. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to, well, let's do 3. So I just did 3 here. And you can always say do 3 for certain columns and then do 2 for another. It doesn't, this is just kind of like a base start. Okay. So now that I know I want my masthead to cover most of this, actually, I'm gonna pull this down to maybe 4 inches because I think we have the space. I read through the copy. I'm gonna pull that down to 4. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to do another guide here at 2, almost 3 inches, right where this first column starts. And what I can do here is kind of highlight a part of the article or put highlights in there so that, you know, it kind of changes up the grid a little bit. Okay. Now, when I go to page 2, this will be part of page 1. Okay. So this will be, you know, once they turn the cover page. Oh, I wanted to show you too. Let me turn off facing pages real quick. I just want you to see what happens when I do that. Go File, Document Setup. And I'm going to turn this facing pages off. Remember I said that, you know, initially I said no. So I click off of that and you can see how it just vertically places the pages instead of seeing it as a printer view. So that's how you would change that. We're going to do facing pages because when you're dealing with a 4-page newsletter, it's going to be, you're going to have a spread here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to kind of set up your spread based on, you know, how you want to do your next part of this. So let's go ahead and do, if you just select the page here in your page panel, so just page 2 is selected, we can just change the margins and columns for only that page. So let's say if I just want to do 2 columns, it's not going to change over here on this 3rd page. It's just going to do page 2, which is kind of cool. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait on that grid because I want to see what I'm going to do here with this copy. I'm going to drag this copy over. And what I think I'm going to do is, you know, with every newsletter, it always has a big header on the top or somewhere where it's utilizing most of the space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, now you could take your rectangle frame tool too, and you can utilize this top part just with that. I'm going to show you an easy way. This is the easy way to import just a very quick header up here. So now this could be an image, which is how I'm going to place this in here now. Or it could be, if you wanted to do instead of an image, say if you wanted to just do a color, you would just do a regular rectangle and you would do a color. Okay. Now, if you wanted to pop over an image on top of that, you would have to use the rectangle frame tool to pop an image over that. And then do File, Place, which I'm doing Command E for my shortcut. Go to your images. Now this is about communicating through the design process. So I want to make sure I'm choosing the right image for that instead of, you know, I want to do the design process examples, for instance. What am I doing? File place. I don't know what's happening here. There we go. File place, creative process. So say if I wanted to place this in here, then I want to go up to object fitting, fill frame proportionally, just to see what I have. If it's not fitting in here proportionately, obviously you're not going to see the whole picture. So you might need to make your box a little bit bigger, but it's going to go with the width on that if you're fitting it to proportion. Okay. Make sure you're not distorting your image in any way. Now I'm going to do something where I'm going to make this, instead of a shape here, like you could do that, it's completely up to you, but I'm going to take the pen tool. I'm going to do what I showed you before. I'm going to click. I'm going to make this like curve here. So I think that's kind of cool. And then I'm going to click the direct selection tool, and I'm going to make like a little curve. And I could always change this. Actually, I'm going to do black first just to get the start of it. Then I'm going to take the type tool. I'm going to put a headline type in here. And I'm going to do newsletter. Let's see. I'm thinking of what my newsletter could be called. Design for life. I don't know, something like that. Okay. Think of a headline. Now, this isn't given to you. You're going to have to think of this yourself. So this is where the creative process comes. Now I'm going to bring up my character panel. Remember the fonts we were talking about? I'm going to go ahead and pick a, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to pick, and it's okay to use a script font or a decorative font for the headline, because it's not like a, you're not doing a whole bunch of type. So it's readable if it's just a few words. And I think that's kind of cool. I'm going to bring up my paragraph panel too. So go up to window, type in tables, and choose paragraph. And this will set my alignment. So say if I wanted that centered, I want to put that box, that text box, to align on both margins. So it's perfectly centered. I know that's perfectly centered. Okay. And then what you could do, typically on newsletters, they do have like a little, they could have like a month or a date. You don't have to do that, but you could add that in there, or maybe even a little tagline about what this newsletter is about. I'm just going to keep it simple. Now with this, I can change the color, so I can pick any color that I want. Where's my color picker here? Let's say if I did this green, but then I didn't really like that green, I'm going to go maybe more of a teal. I can kind of play around with that. So say if I like that color, I can drag that color in here. And then what's cool is I could duplicate it, just go down, drag it down over that plus sign. And then you can edit it by double clicking on it and say, maybe making this a little darker for the headline. Oops. I'll make it a little darker and say if I wanted to use that for, type or whatever. Oops, you have to select the type tool, select the type before you change it. But you could do something like that, where it's kind of utilizing that same color. Okay. All right. So now that I kind of have a headline, note that you can also place, if you're doing like a shape like this with the pen tool, you can also place in pictures. So let's go ahead and place a picture in there instead of doing a color. If you double click after you place in there, the red box will appear, and that's the whole shape, the whole entire image that you might not be seeing. So you can, kind of play around with this a little bit more with just pulling it up and down in this actual picture box. So that's kind of a neat way to do it. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. So you could do something like that, have fun with it. It doesn't have to be like that. It could just be a regular square like I showed you, but this is the title. So my article actually is going to start right about, so I'm going to give about like a 1/2 inch in between here. So there's another guide. And now I'm going to break this up into columns because this is too long of a line length. Typically, you want to stay within 72. You don't want to go longer than 72 characters a line. That means you count each one of these letters, because it's hard to read if it's longer. So we're going to select this copy box and we're going to go up to, and I showed you this to you last time, Object, Text Frame Options, and we're going to do 3 columns because that's kind of what we showed here, remember? Click OK. Now let's say you don't want that first paragraph here involved with your 3 columns. Maybe you want that to be 2 column only. Well, what you can do is you can copy only that copy, just highlight it with your type tool, go edit copy, and then you're going to have to delete it. And then delete all the extra spaces in here. Take your selection tool, move that copy down a little bit. Take your type tool, drag another copy box down. Command V is edit paste. Now we want this to be 2 columns. So we're going to go to Object, Text Frame Options, and we're going to select 2 and click OK. So that's how you would change this to be 2 columns. That way it's separated from this, but it's still connected. We'll have it connected and I'll show you an easy way. The only thing here is it's showing a subhead. You can leave this in here and change the hierarchy of it, or you could just copy and paste and take it out and do another copy box so that you can treat it a little differently. So I'll show you what I mean. I just did this differently. So remember how I said the Bodini is a good body copy? We can do whatever we want as far as the subhead because it's only short words. So let's say we're going to use the same font as we did for the headline here, and we're going to make this a little bigger. Now, you could do that for a subhead. And then you're going to make all of your body copy. So select all. I said Baskerville, right? Baskerville. Did I say Baskerville? I think regular. And we want to make sure, and let's do 10 point by 14. And we want to do the same thing here. You want this to be all consistent. So 10 point type by 14 point leading. Leading is your line spacing. Okay. Now, once you have that set, let me show you an easy way, and let me undo that. So it goes back to the bigger copy. Let me show you a way that you can set that very easily using a a character style. Okay. A character style is a way to set a style of, say, your typeface, your body copy, so that you can always go back to that to keep it all consistent and not have to go in and change all this stuff. So what you want is this particular copy, but you want it to be set all throughout your newsletter, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to select all. So we want Baskerville at 10. Right now, this is 12 by 14. We're going to just select all. And we're going to go up to window. Let's see here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to, where are my character styles? Type tables. Hold on. There we go. It's actually under type on your menu bar. So go under type, and we're going to choose We're actually going to we're going to do paragraph style first. Character style, I just kind of mentioned before. These two basically do the same thing. Character style is for subheads and headlines. So short copy as compared to body copy. So body copy is a lot more copy. So we want to do paragraph styles for body copy. So go ahead and hit paragraph styles. So we're always going to have a default of basic paragraph. So ignore that. We're going to add a new paragraph style. So click on that little plus sign and we're going to select the paragraph style one. We're going to double click on top of it. We're going to name this body copy and then hit return. Just double click on top. Now what we're going to do is double click. Once we name it, go ahead and double click on the actual blue part of it, not the word part. We have body copy set. And this is a paragraph style option. So this is what you want to see. There's a lot of stuff in here. Just kind of ignore most of it. We'll kind of go over some things as we go forward. But ignore all this. This is just basically your style. This is what it's named. And go ahead and click on basic character format. This is what your basic font is. If you need to change it, you can click here. But we want Baskerville, we want regular, we want 10-point type. If you need to change that to 10, go ahead, 14 is good. That is exactly what we want. So click OK, everything's set. So watch what happens. Remember how this copy is not quite what we want yet? So we're going to take the type tool, we're going to go select all. We're going to go back to our paragraph style. We're going to click on where it says body copy, right to the right of it. And watch what happens. It changes. It changes right to exactly what this type is set to. So that's an easy way to set your type consistently. So when you go and you do, your other second part, you can use that paragraph style. Now, character style is very similar, only this would be used for headlines or subheads. So this, for example, would be a subhead, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to change that to be a subhead, a character style subhead. So let's say we want to make this bold and we want to make this bigger because subheads are a little bit bigger. So we'll do 12 by 12 and bold. So we're going to kind of highlight that subhead. We're going to set it to what we want. And now we're going to go to character styles. And if you don't see that, you would just go to type character styles. And again, we're going to do a new character style. We're going to name this subhead. Oops, subheads. And then you can click down here and you can see, we're at Baskerville. We want this set. Preview. And click OK. So any subheads that you want, just highlight and click on that subhead character style. Isn't that cool? So it's an easy way to set your subheads so that it's consistent and you don't have to go in and do it the long way. One more thing, let's go back to paragraph style. The body copy, you can always edit this too. Let's go ahead and double click on that because what we're going to do is we're going to add spaces or indents. So it's always nice to have a space, say like after each paragraph, or an indent so that the reader knows they're starting a new paragraph. So we're going to go ahead and double click on body copy again. And we're going to go to indents and spacing. We're going to hit preview and move this over so you can kind of see it change as you're setting this. All right, so the alignment is left. That's perfect. Now, if I wanted a first line indent, not a left indent, a first line indent, that's for each paragraph, we can go ahead and set that. See how that indents there? You can see how each first line indents so that okay, this is a new paragraph. Do not go past 1.125. It just gets too big. So 0.125 is a good space to keep at. So if you want a first indent, you could do that. Or you could do a space after each paragraph. And I would do at least 0.125 or 0.75 for this. Because I want it to be balanced. I don't want to be too spaced out, but I don't want it to be so spaced out that you can't, it looks strange. You want to keep it together. Okay, so I like the space, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go back to my character style and double click on that. And I'm going to, let's see here. You can change colors here too. I wanted to show you that character color. So let's change that to that cool teal color, the darker color. Look how it kind of changes it. Isn't that neat? So what's nice about this, if you ever wanted to go in and say, oh, it's not quite big enough, I want to go a little bit bigger, you can make those changes and then see those changes happen as you're making those changes. So it's a nice, easy way, if you have a ton of copy, to make those changes and make it, consistent. All right. Now you noticed how now my baseline grids aren't lining up. Look how from first, second column, third column, my baselines aren't lining up. So what I want to do is I want to make sure my baselines are lining up. And what I want to do is I want to go to, there's a baseline grid. Okay. Hold on. I always forget where this is out. Give me 1 second. Baseline. Alignment. Okay, I think this is in, if I click on body copy, so you go back to your body copy style, and let's see, the baseline should be in here. Indents and spacing, align to grid. So we want to do all lines. Okay, so when we do all lines, what happens is it's going to give spaces in between each of these lines. So we don't really want that. Okay, we don't want all lines. We want it to be where it's aligning to an actual baseline. So what we're going to do is what you would have to do, we'll click OK, is you would have to go up to your preferences up here, click on InDesign preferences, and let's go to grids. Okay. Memory. This is where it gets a little, give me 1 second here, grids. It gets a little wonky. Yes, 8 points. Okay, so what you're going to want to do, we want it to snap to a grid to see how the baselines are now. Oh, they're not even aligning here because of my spaces. Yes, that's gonna, let me undo this here. Hold on. Well, what's screwing it up is my my subheads are screwing up my baselines. Like the alignment there. Oh, cancel that. We don't want that. So double click on your right there. Okay, we want to do auto for leading for a subhead. Okay, let me go through these options here. Okay, click OK. And then what we want to do we have our baselines. Okay, let me see. It's somewhere in here. Basic format, leading, indents and spaces. Oh, it's getting close. What I think this has to be is equal to what it is aligning to. only. We want to do all lines. This is where it gets a little tricky because our subheads are in here. Hold on one second. Drop caps, bullet styles, underlining. We're going to do none. Okay. And let me go back to our character subheads. 13, auto letting. 14. Let me get back to that because I can't remember how to align them. There's a way you can snap to baselines. Let me think. Oh, it's like really easy too. Text frame options, baseline options. There we go. Okay, so baseline grid. Okay. Hold on one second. 1 minute here. It's you know, escaping my mind here. I kind of showed you the right way. It's just kind of how to get everything aligned here perfectly. And what we might need to do is pull out those subheads. Yes, I think that's what we're going to have to do. But those subheads are, that's going to be a little tricky. Let me go back in here. Hold on one second. And let me go try the subheads, character, paragraph style. Make this a little smaller. Make this auto. Okay, so I made it 12. And then my paragraph, body copy. I want to spacing line to grid all lines. Okay, click OK. So we did all lines. Now we want to go to preferences and we want to just make that smaller. So we're going to do the increments every 10 points. There we go. Let's do increments. That's a little bit too spaced out. Let's do 9 points. Nope. Let's do 8 points. It's still kind of all messed up here. Hold on. 8 points threshold is 75. There we go. Now they're aligning. So the key is we can have the subheads at 12 points if you're doing Baskerville, 10 and 14 for the leading. When you want to snap to your baselines, you just double click on your body copy. You go to your indents and spacing. You want to align to a grid, all lines. Now it's going to look funky. Go up to InDesign, go to preferences and go to your grids and change your increment to 8 points or whatever will align these perfectly. Okay. Now I'm going to move this up and down based on, how this is going to break and stuff. So just kind of bear with me here. What you don't want is any kind of lines. These are called orphans because it's the only line on the second column. We don't want that. And we don't want widows. So we want to kind of make sure that that's not happening. You can adjust your box to do that. Now my baselines are still not aligning here. Oh, you know what? I have an extra space here. That could be why. One of the reasons why. Now, what might be easier and what you might want to do for your body copy, instead of doing space after, you might just want to do indents and spacing. That we'll do none here and we'll do 0 here. And first indent, we'll just do 125. that just might help with all the alignment issues here that we're having, so that you don't even have to worry about all that stuff. But what you will have is, like, say before your subheads, you'll want to do an extra space. So that's the only thing. Also, your character styles, you don't want those indented. So we'll do just basic paragraph for that. We want to highlight your subhead, go back to your paragraph styles. Basic paragraph should be selected, and only subheads paragraph character style should be selected to have that, so they're not indented. Okay. All right. So now, since this is the first intro copy, I can make this a little different. So I can go to, just kind of like make the focal point go right to it. So I'm going to create a new style, and I'm going to double click on this new style. I'm going to name this first or intro copy. Let's do intro copy. And I'm going to double click on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the size. And actually, let's do auto 14. I'm going to change this to a different, I'm going to do a sans serif. It's too bold. Let's do Chora, or no, let's do, that may be hard to read. We don't want to do another serif because that just gets weird with, looking too much like the body copy. So we want to make it a little different. I'm going to do, let's see if there's Avenir. It's anything more condensed. Avenir is a good one. Futura might be a good one. Gil Sans actually is a good one. We'll do Gil Sans, maybe regular. We have a condensed one. No. Okay. That is just a nice balance to the body copy. I'm going to get rid of the, you can get rid of the indent here though, because it is the first paragraph intro. You don't necessarily have to have that. So it's just a nice way to pull the eye in, for the person to know that, okay, this is the first copy to read before we get into the nitty-gritty stuff. Just make sure that it's, breaking nicely. I can also adjust the copy if it's like kind of too big or whatever. Okay. Now I have a widow here, and how we would adjust that is I would just bump like we use down here. Shift return would be a soft return that you could do to bump that down. Okay. So now we have the subheads. Let's do headlines. So character styles, let's click another character style. We're going to name this headline. And we're going to do the lobster font, but we're going to make this a little bit bigger. And we're also going to make this the size, or I'm sorry, the color of the green. Okay, so any type of headline that you want to repeat, it will keep it consistent. Now, feel free if you want to add lines. So like say a nice little dotted line here, or just a straight line of that color. Remember how I was telling you about just a very thin line. Go up to window stroke. We can give this like a very 0.5 is a good size to make that a little where it's not too thick. That's high guides here. You can see how this is coming together. All right, and you can add, extra elements in here. I can make this bigger if I feel like, you know, I want to make the headline bigger, but choose a headline that, you know, it could just be, you know, newsletter too. Doesn't have to have like a specific name. Oops. Putting this down, it's not coming out. There we go. Something like that. And bring up the leading in here because it's going to get, there we go. And then I can repeat certain elements. Like for instance, this line. I'm just doing copy paste. And feel free to break this up, you know, and then also you could do color in the background. So say if you wanted to do, instead of those lines, you wanted to do a solid color. Once you create that shape, you want to make sure it goes to the back of the text. So go up to Object Arrange with that shape selected and send to back. And then you can go over to your properties panel. Let's go to properties. Go to your properties. So Windows properties, that's a nice panel to go to where you can change a lot of different things. With that selected, you can change the opacity here. So you could just, you know, dial it down a little bit so it's not so bold. And then you don't have to worry about doing those lines in between. Just, you know, just this would be sufficient enough. And it kind of starts the story in a nice way here, where it's, you know to look here first and then here before getting started. And you can kind of play around with this, like do some really cool stuff. Like maybe you wanted to add in a thicker color here. Okay. All right, so go ahead and save this. Let me save this newsletter. Part 1, my first and last initial. We're going to save it as the InDesign. So save. I'm just saving mine to the desktop, but you should create a folder for yours. And now we're going to go and I'm going to show you how to flow this text box into the second page. Okay, so see your pages up here. Let me get rid of some of these boxes here. Get rid of some of these, make this a little bit easier to see. Get your pages. So we want this to flow into page 2. Okay, so let me go back to guides. I'm going to show guides. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to page 2 and we're going to go take the type tool and we're going to align it up on my grid here. Just go ahead and draw the type box with your type tool. And then you're going to go back to page 1 and you're going to select that typeface, or I'm sorry, the body copy box that we created. See that little red box on the bottom right-hand corner? We're going to click one time on that little red box. And what that's going to do is copy what's not showing in that box. And we're going to navigate to our second page and we're just going to click one time in this box. And you'll see how it copies all of this information in this one box. So you can kind of just decide on what, you know, how many columns you want. Maybe it's one column and you're using this for, you know, another highlighted column. You know, maybe this becomes, you know, a graphic, or this becomes, you know, something that divides this up a little bit. But this is where I would start because I have my margin here. And maybe I would pull that over here. I don't know. I'll have to see because we're not really working on page 3 yet. That'll be part 2. Now, what I do want to make sure is, remember how we did our subheads this way? Let me hide my guides. We want to make sure that this is consistent. So now that we see this copy that we didn't see, we want to make sure that we're showing our styles, character styles, because we got to change, remember this style, we want to say basic paragraph, but we want to do subhead. And that looks like the only subhead that's left. And everything else looks good. All right, that looks good. Now we want to make sure that's consistent with, I'm going to pull this to the left a little bit because it doesn't have to be half that page. We can give some space in there. We want to make sure that we're keeping it consistent with this. So maybe we would just copy this part. I'm copying the little line there. And maybe we're adding this to the bottom, or doing something different down here. We're kind of dividing up that grid, but we're balancing out our information as well. Because we don't want too much white space to be after this last paragraph, because this is where it ends, the actual article. Okay, so what we're going to be focusing on is balancing this out, where the copy maybe starts the lower half of the first page. You create your own header for your masthead, something that brings people in, a focal point. Like I said, this doesn't have to be what I just did here. You could have, a solid color. You can just have a solid image back here, and just kind of breaking it up so it's a little bit more visually interesting and consistent. All right, so remember how we talked about those other images? Maybe we're bringing those in over here. Just make sure, and I'm drawing out my rectangle frame tool. Just make sure that these are bring to front, that whatever you're repeating as smaller images, that you're keeping that consistent. You don't want to use different sizes here because it's not consistent. So I'm going to copy paste, and I already used the masthead picture, but it's so small, it's kind of abstract up here, that I could probably use it again in here on this page. So I just copied and pasted the same text rectangle frame tool, so it's consistently the same size. That's important. And I'm going to shift select each one with my selection tool. I'm going to go up to window, and I'm going to go to, where's my alignment? I know I was looking for this before. Oh, object and layout and align. We want to make sure they have equal spaces in between. So we would choose distribute objects, and we would choose this button here, distribute centers. That just makes sure it's equal spacing in between. And then if you want to make sure that they're all aligned on the, say, the left side, you could do the left side alignment with them all selected. So it looks good. So now I'm going to do file place or Command D, and I'm going to place in object fitting fill frame proportion the images that go with this article. And this one's about the creative process. So we want to do creative process. There's a client meeting. Let me see what my options are here. So maybe I'm just doing 2 images for this one. Looks like, and that's okay. We could just delete this one. That's fine. And you don't have to do, excuse me, do two images on this side. You can actually introduce another image over here if it works. If you do that, you want to make sure that, if this is fitting right here. Pull this down a little bit. There we go. You want to make sure that you're wrapping around the text box. Let me show you how to do that, a text wrap. So let's say you decide that you want to do a box, say, right here. Now, if you decide to pull this inside your copy, you want to make sure that it's aligning with your margins. Okay, because if it's not, it's going to be weird. And it's going to create weird, flow here on the sides. But let's say we want it to be like right here. Well, there's copy behind it. You can't see it, but there's copy behind it, right? We don't want to miss out copy. We don't want to go over copy with our image. So what we want to do is we want to put a text wrap on it, and the text wrap will bump the copy that's behind it so that it's not interfering and hindering that and covering it up. So with our rectangle frame tool selected, our picture, we want to go up to Let's see here, text wrap is under. And if you need help, sometimes this is good because sometimes I need that too. Is under window. Okay, window text wrap. It's been a while. So window text wrap. It will bring up this panel and it's already set to no text wrap. We don't want that because we want that text to bump. So we're going to do wrap around bounding box. Look how it wraps around. Now, if you want it to have more space around it, if this link is selected, it's going to change top, bottom, side. I just want to change the bottom. So I'm going to unclick that. So we're not going to change all of it. We're just going to do the bottom part. See how it says it's just affecting the bottom. And look what happens when I bump this down a little bit. See how it's kind of just giving that space to the bottom. So what you want to do is you just want to make sure that the baselines are aligning. And that's how you can bump that down. So anytime you move this, watch what happens. It bumps. Isn't that cool? So that's a text wrap. You don't necessarily have to do that. It's going to bump all the text. So it's going to be longer on this side. Just kind of know that, which might be good. You might need more copy down here. That's fine. You can just kind of adjust it, whatever you kind of need to do. If that's the case, just, check your spaces here. Make sure you don't have anything weird happening. You can still, keep these images. And again, you don't necessarily have to do square, but I would keep it consistent. So if you're doing like a circle image on the front, I would do the circle image here. If you're doing a frame like a circle is what I'm saying, you would do it here. If you decided to do not like just a square, just keep it consistent, So if you're doing a circle on all pages, instead of doing a circle, square, keep it consistent to whatever shape, just because it helps with unification, it helps unify the article, so it's easier to understand. All right, so that would be, and you could put drop shadows on these. Watch what happens when I put drop shadows. So I'm going to go to Object, Effects with that picture selected and choose drop shadow and hit preview. It's going to give, before I actually commit to it, it's going to show a preview if I have this preview checked, the drop shadow. And you can change this. Say if it's too dark, you can change the opacity, you can change the distance, you can change the angle here. So I would just do a simple, I did 0.0625 by, let's do 30%. You could just do a simple effect. Just keep it consistent. And what that does is it just helps it look like it pops off the page. So if that's kind of like the look that you want to give, you could do something like that. That's pretty cool. So play around with that. If you do it to one, I would do it to all the other ones. Keep it all consistent. Don't make one darker. You want to make it consistent so it's all kind of unifying. You can also do a drop shadow for, say, type. You just have to be really careful with that because sometimes it's hard to read. So see, for instance, this is kind of hard to read. I would keep it to a shorter distance and a very subtle, like say 15%. And then obviously it'd be closer distance wise to the letter forms, but it kind of gives a nice, I wouldn't do it to the body copy, keep that no drop shadow for that because it's hard to read, but say for larger text for the headline, that might be a nice little additive to that, just to kind of make it more dynamic. All right, save it. Now what I would do, kind of pull this over here if you want, kind of keep that. Even though it's not the same article, we might just pull this back, just keep it on that page. Now I'm going to explain parent pages, and then we'll just wrap this up. I'll show you how to package this file so you can zip it and submit it for your project for submitting. Okay, so parent pages are an easy way to keep your elements consistent on each page. So I'm going to show you an example. So all of these are assigned to a parent page. You can see it because there's a little A on each of these pages. Now, if I didn't want that to have the attributes for a parent, I would just drag the none over top of that page and see how that A disappears. And what that would mean is it's not going to show what's on this parent page. And I'll show you very easily how this works. So if you go to your parent page, how to set your parent pages is you double click right on top of this little page, okay? And this is your parent page. So whatever you put on this page, I'm going to just do a really big rectangle. You'll see on the left page, side page, that's connected to that parent page. So it would be page 2 and 4, not 3, because 3 is this right page on the right side. It would apply this to anything that has a parent page assigned to them. So see how that little A, if I double click on page 2, you'll see that block appear. Page 4, it's on the left side. Isn't that weird? So it repeats it on all of the left pages. You can't delete it, you can't change it. And these pages here, if you go to the regular pages here and click on it and say you want to move it, you can't move it. You have to actually double click on your parent page that you want to move and actually move it here. Okay, so let me show you how that looks on the right hand side. So like say you wanted I don't know, yellow. Let's do yellow. I can get yellow here. Circle on the very bottom of all your pages like that. Let's put this like here. If you double click on your third page here, it's going to show on any page on the third page. So if I were to add a page to this, which you guys don't have to add a page, it's going to add it to that last page. So page 5 would have it and page 4 would have it. Now, you don't have to have a page 5, so we're going to delete that. Anytime you want to, edit this, you have to click on that page and you can delete it from there or change it. Now, this is good for anything that's going to be repeated on each page, okay? So let's say if we have, a line that we know it's going to be repeated. Say we want to do like a thick green line. I'll pull it down here. At the very base of that page, if I double click on my page here, it's going to show it on this page on the left only and the left page here. So it's consistent. Okay. Another thing is page numbers. So I'm going to show you how to do page numbers. The only way to do page numbers is through your parent pages, because that's going to help. It's going to number it itself. And so you don't have to go in and number it. All right. So I'm going to go up to view and I'm going to show guides first. And I'm going to pull down a margin at the very bottom here on both sides. I don't really need that because I already have a margin line. That's fine. Now, how you do page numbers, go ahead and click on the left parent page, and we're going to zoom in on the bottom here. Page numbers are on the bottom. So we want to take the type tool, and we want to start where the margin starts with the type tool and end where the margin ends here. And once we're ready to type in there, we want to go up to type, insert special character. There we go. And then we want to do current page number. So insert, we want to go to type on the menu bar, insert special character, select markers, current page number. What's going to happen when you select that? It's going to put an A there. Now that's going to change once we get out of the parent pages to the actual number page that it's assigned to. So for instance, since the first left page starts for this parent page, it will be page 2 because it's assigning it to that page in our page panel. Page 4 will be page 4. So we're going to leave that A there, and then we're going to hit tab, and then we're going to put Design for Life newsletter, or whatever your title is. We're going to put the title there. Now we can change the font for this, but let's go ahead and do a paragraph style. Let's go to styles under window, paragraph style, and we're going to do a new paragraph style. We're going to name this page numbers. Oops, page number. And we're going to change this. I'm going to give it a very thick and bold font, BBoss. You can pick something what you think is best. And I'm going to do all caps. So my case will be all caps. And I'm going to do very small size. I'm going to do 8. If you hit preview, you can see that being suggested changes in here. Actually, I'm going to do, let's do 7. I think that's pretty big. Let's do BBoss new. I think that's, for some reason, I didn't think that was, it didn't look like that before. Okay, let's do something else here. I want this to be not a sans serif typeface. Oh, I think I know why that's done. Okay, let me go back to BBoss. I was fine. I think it's because I have something else selected. Let's do BBoss. I'm going to do 8-point type. My letting's fine. Just keep it the way it is. And then I'm going to, we're not going to indent it. So 0, check that, indents and spacing. And then I'm going to give it a color. So let's go ahead and go down to character color. And I'm going to give it that darker green. And click OK. Now, I'm going to go back up to window. I'm going to go to styles. I'm going to bring up my character box because what's happening is it's changing into my subheads. It's not changing to the font I want. So I'm going to go to none. So it's not affecting it. And then paragraph styles where I just created, make sure that's selected. See, now it's changing. Now it's what it needs to be. Okay. So it should be A is your page number. That should be right up, butt up against that aligned margin. And then the name of your newsletter. Now I'm going to pull this down a little bit because I want it to be not super close to that baseline, but you don't want it to be too close to the trim edge. So probably right about here would be good. So let's do my guides. Let's change my guides. Actually, let's put the baseline of this, or actually the top of this right there. Perfect. Okay, so that will appear on all my left-hand pages. The A will turn into the page number. Let me save this. The left side pages only, because I only did my left side. And then so it'll change to that number when I view it in my regular pages. And then it'll have this. Watch what happens. I'm going to double click on my number 2 page. And let me bring this up. This is all hiding it. There you go. There's my number 2. And then 4 should have it too. And it changes it to the number 4. Isn't that cool? Okay, so now we have to do it on the other side because we have pages on the other side. So easy. This is kind of an easy way to do this, is just to copy and paste this. Let me pull down my guide here so it's aligned on the right. So I'm going to do Command C and we're going to paste it on this side, but we want the page number to be on the right this time, not the left, because it's on the right. So paste this and we're going to align it just like we did. And this time we're going to just copy the A. We're going to delete this. Oops. And delete that space. Okay. Actually, delete the whole thing. And then we're going to go to, we're going to go to paragraph here. So let's go to type tools and tables, paragraph. And we want to do right aligned in this, right? Because we want this to be right aligned. So we want this to be on the right. And then what we can do is hit tab and we can copy and paste this. Just this part, copy. Hit tab. Oops. Okay, now the tabs are a little tricky. If we want this to not B, this big tab here, we want to make sure we set our tabs, and they can be a little trickier. So let me show you how to set tabs. And I just want to point out, because I did a different alignment here, let me go back. See how when I chose a different alignment, it screwed up my paragraph style, because it's saying, hey, wait a second, you went from left align to right align and you didn't change it here. And so that's why you see that little plus sign. So we want to make sure we go back to left align, and we want to make sure we set our settings here first. So what we want to do is double click on our page numbers, okay? And then we want to go to tabs. And what we're going to do, actually, you know what? We're going to set this. We're going to do right page number and left page number. I think that would probably be better. I think that's going to screw you up if you don't do two. So this would be left page number. So let's rename this left page number, left page numbers. And then we're going to create a new tab or a new paragraph style. And this is going to be a new paragraph style, right page numbers. And in your, let's see here, indents and spacing, we want to change this to right alignment so that this is on the right, the page number. Okay, so now it's a little easier. We can set up the tabs too. So let's go back to our left page number in our paragraph styles. We're going to double click on it and we're going to hit tabs. And we're going to set a tab. So we're going to do a left justified tab. So this is already selected. We're going to do it about, I'll do it a 1/2 inch. So we're going to just click right there and click OK. Now, when we go in here, we want to make sure that we have the left page number selected, and we want to hit tab. So we want to delete that space that we put in there and hit tab on our keyboard. So that's going to tab it where we have it. Same thing for this. Double click, and we're going to do right page numbers. Let me delete this. Well, actually, the tab's still in there, so we're good. We're going to double click on that right. We're going to go to tabs, and we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to delete this one. We're going to do right aligned. And we're going to set this, go ahead and set that. And you can kind of see it if you have the preview button selected, you can kind of see the tabbings placed in there. We want to set this to about a 1/2 inch as well. So we want to put it like right there, right up beyond the 7. You can drag this to the right, so it's just beyond the 7 here, and click OK. Now I just need to delete that extra space and hit tab. There we go. There's something funky going on here. Hold on one second. Where's my tabs again? There we go. No, that's set right. Okay. I think it's because I didn't do the A properly. I might have to go back into a special character again. So with that, just delete that A, do the same thing I did on the left side. So type insert character markers, current page number. Oh, it's still doing it. That's really weird. Okay. Hold on. And I guess that's not the reason. I think there's an extra space here. Hold on. My tabs are really weird. All right, let's go. Left, I'm going to do right aligns. Let me just make sure this is aligned right. So let me go to, oh, this is where, yeah, right aligned. That's what I want. I must have to do a tab here. Maybe, is that what I have to do? Delete that space in between. Oh, that's really weird. Oh no. Let me try something different here. Left page align. Let's do our tab to, okay, we have right align. Let's see, where is it out here? Oh, okay. Let's see what's happening. Cancel. For some reason, I changed that to my left, my left page number and not my right. There we go. Okay, now my right page number. Let's go back to my tabs. There we go. I had that on the wrong style. So you can see how just a little slip up will cause that to get all funky. So I want it to be the same. There we go. Distance here as the other one. So I'm going to do it 7. This looks pretty good. Yep. All right. So just make sure you have the right style set, or else you'll have problems like that. All right. So I'm going to save that. And then now I'm going to check it. So I'm going to go back to my page 2 and I'm going to zoom in on the bottom. And it's going to be page 2 and it looks good. It has the folio. And then page 3 looks good. See how it just goes from the A to the 3. And then page 4. Okay. Now, if you just want to deal with the page numbers and not necessarily the name of the newsletter, that's fine. If you want to keep it simple, that way you're not dealing with tabs, that's fine. You won't lose points. Keep it simple. But if you want to play around with the name, just make sure you're having that set very, very consistently. That means the spacing, you want it to be on the right side on the right page, the left side on the left page. So anytime you want to edit that, you have to click on the parent page to do that. Okay. And like, let's say I don't want my page number to be on this page, because what if I have an image that goes over this? And originally I had this going over it. All I would need to do is grab the none page and just go right on top of page 2. And that's just going to eliminate my page number altogether. Okay. And that's typically like if you have a cover page, you don't usually put page 1 for like a magazine. So you would definitely, use that in regards to like, using the none page over top of that first magazine cover. You don't usually see page numbers on a magazine cover. All right, so that is basically where we're at. I know it's a lot of information. Just try to get what you can done. I'm going to show you how to package this and then zip it to submit. And then again, tomorrow we'll have an open office hours from 10 to 11 Eastern Standard Time. So once you're done listening to this and you have any questions, I can help you through it. All right. So why do we need to package this file? Because we don't want to have to link the images, send separate images to me to open up your file. We want it to be all in one area. And this is typically how designers send a file to print, say to a printer. They want to package them because the printer might not have the same fonts that we have. They definitely won't have the images. So instead of like sending them separately, you're just sending it all in one compressed zip file, but you have to package it first. So make sure you save it when you're ready. And then what you're going to do is go back up to File, and you're going to choose Package. It's super, super easy. So File, Package. And what's neat about this is a little package alert box will appear, and it's going to tell you, if there's any issues with your, say, if you have missing images, or if you need, what file type your images are. If you click on links and images, you can see it's JPEG, RGB, and what they're on, what colors. They're set to color. If they're processed, for color or RGB, it's going to show you that. If you have any font issues, all the fonts that you used in here will be listed here. So if you had any issues here, it would say, say if you pulled the image out of your folder and it's somewhere else after placing it in your newsletter, it's going to say, hey, we're trying to link it. It's no longer in this folder. You need to relink it, but it looks good here. So no issues. Everything looks good. I'm going to hit package. And I'm going to save this on my desktop, but if you have a folder, save it to that folder. It's going to create another folder for you. So just FYI, what we want to do is we want to copy fonts. So we want that checked. Copy linked graphics, that checked. Update graphic links and package. We want that checked so it links on any updates that you did. Use document hyphenation exceptions only to have that checked. And then include fonts and links from hidden and non-printed content. That's fine. Include IDML. That's just like a workable InDesign file. And then include a PDF. Now, this is the PDF preset. We don't have to worry about press quality right now, but if you were sending this to the printer, you would want to choose press quality. But because you're just submitting it for me, I don't want your file size to be huge. So just choose smallest file size. And what it's going to do is it not only is going to put your InDesign file in there, but it's also going to put a PDF in there. So I can open that too. Okay, this is what the name of the file is. That's where I'm saving it. Hit package. And it might take a little while. It's collecting all that information. And then wherever you saved it, which I saved it on my desktop, should show as a folder. And here it is. Here's my folder. Oh, no, that's the assets. Sorry. Here's the folder. ABIS newsletter art 1 folder. So if I double click on that, it has my open file, which I have now. If I close this, let's go ahead and close this. That should disappear eventually. This is the actual workable InDesign native file. So if I open that, I can open up in InDesign. This is the PDF. Go ahead and open that. Make sure you have the PDF in here. I didn't click on spreads, so it's not showing it in spreads, but you know, I'll show you that in a second. But open up the PDF, make sure it looks good. It has all my document fonts. So any fonts that I use has all that in there. So whoever's opening this up, if they don't have the fonts, they can download it. And then the linked images, all the images I use is in this folder. So it kind of packages it in a nice folder here. And now before you submit this, we want to zip it, because what happens is you won't be able to submit this without it being zipped. It won't let you through our class submission file folder. And you want to zip it because it'll compress it. Because right now, let me do a Command I, it's about 8.3 megabytes. So what you want to do is select the folder. There's a couple ways to do this. Go File, Compress, and it's going to create, it looks like a zipped folder, has a little zip there. And there's your file. So if you do Command I, it shrinks it from 8 megabytes to 5. So that's pretty good. So the file's more condensed. And this is what you would submit to me. And then I would unzip it and look at your file, or the printer would. Another way you could do it on a Mac is if you Control click and hit compress. Now I know there's a different way for PC users. Unfortunately, I don't have a PC. So if you're unsure about that, you can also look at that. And I can actually provide both steps in announcements after I'm done here. So I just don't have it at the top of my head for PC users, but you would zip it if you're a PC user as well. And this is what you would submit. Okay. So that is it for one other thing I wanted to show you. If you wanted to, let's go package again. If you wanted to do spreads, it would be based on your PDF here. So what you would have to do is go to Acrobat, and you would have to go to your settings to change this to do page layout to up right here. So you would have to go to Acrobat, Adobe Acrobat, go to Preferences, Page Display to up, and click OK. And then that way, when you open up, oops, these are assets. Hold on a second, guys, sorry. Oh, you know what? We don't want to do two up because it's going to show this next page. Just leave it as is. There is a way that you can do separately. If you did a PDF separate to just do, allow the facing pages to do like a double page spread, but we don't really need to do that. don't worry about doing the what I just showed you. Just keep it as is. When I open it, I will be able to see that, you know, I know that this is going to be page 1 and page 2. I'll show you, if you don't package it and you say you just create a PDF by itself, this is where you would change it. So you would go to File, Adobe PDF Presets, Desktop. It's just a different way to do it. Once you hit save, this is where you can actually do, let's see, spreads right here where it says pages, and then click export. Oops. So it just kind of does spreads, but now I would have to, hold on, change my preferences again. So give me 1 second, back to the automatic. I'm going to do that again. Spreads, all pages, click export. And again, you don't have to do this. I just want to show you what it looks like. Okay, so it's going to show it just like you see it in your InDesign file, only it's a PDF. So it's going to show your first page, double page spread, and then your last page. But you would have to change it in that particular way instead of doing the package. Okay. You know, meet me tomorrow if you have any questions, but hopefully this will get you through for part 1. Just listening and then rewinding will help, go step by step. And hopefully this helps.